Hello, my name is Alicia Damien, and I've decided to record my critical literacy autobiography. I apologize for the informal presentation. I just got back from a long family trip, and if you hear any background noises, that is the said family. So I'm just going to be reading off the numbered prompts that we were given for the assignment, and so I'm going to start off. So 1, personal experiences with varied languages and literacies. So I grew up in a Mexican household. My father is from Mexico City, Mexico DF. My mother is from Arizona, Yuma, Arizona, but my grandparents on my mother's side are both from Mexico as well. My grandma is from San Luis, and my grandpa was from Mexicali. So I grew up in a bilingual household, and I failed to mention in my discussion post where I was introducing myself that my mother herself was an ELL student. So that is the reason why she does. That's why she's working so hard to help ELL students currently. And my dad, so a lot of Spanish and English was spoken in the household. My mom told me that when I was younger, she used to say like juice jugo, bottle tetera. So that's how I basically technically learned Spanish. And with that, my grandpa and my grandma were both completely Spanish speaking, so there was a lot of Spanish in my household. But since my mother, my uncle, and my aunt are all in the education system, they are all teachers, they also spoke English. So I got a really good balance of both English and Spanish. So I think that leads into the ways in which our languages and literacies have been developed. So basically, along with being in a Spanish household, I also went to a completely all-speaking Spanish church. My grandpa was a pastor of that church, so I was very, very involved in my culture through that way. It was all Spanish speaking at church, so all the sermons, all the teaching that was done in my Sunday school was all Spanish. So the most of the time that I spoke English was either it was just me and my mom, or me and my younger brother, or in school, or when I was with my family. Because what I like to say is that my family likes to speak Spanglish. So basically, it's just a mix of Spanish and English. So we'll say things like, "Oh, I'm gonna go to the store. Y luego I'm gonna go to school. Y luego I'm gonna do this." So like, there's always a lot of Spanglish in my vocabulary. I'm always speaking Spanglish. My family's always speaking Spanglish. So I think that leads into the ways in which our languages and literacies have been developed. So basically, since I had a good amount of both English and Spanish in my home and in school, I believe that I developed both of my languages really well up until my father was deported when I was 8. And after that, the only person that we really spoke Spanish with was with my grandma, and even then I wasn't with my grandma very often. My grandpa also spoke English. My grandma did not learn to speak English very well. She only speaks Spanish mostly, but she understands English really well as well. So around when I was 8, my dad got deported, and since we weren't with him every day like we were in the past, I feel like that really hindered my Spanish speaking. So on the weekends we would go visit him, and at some point that stopped. And so at some point I just was not in Mexico anymore. I wasn't really speaking Spanish anymore. The only time I spoke Spanish was when I spoke to my grandma, and that really dwindled my Spanish speaking abilities. So, and that especially affected my younger brother. He is 3 years younger than me, so he didn't get as much help with Spanish, or he was not spoken to as much in Spanish because of just his age. Like, he just wasn't with the family as much as I was. So, however, it is something that we are both working on currently, now that we are older, now that we know what we need help with and what we're lacking in. But yeah, it's a work in progress for the both of us. So how these languages and literacies have influenced who we are. So basically, going off on how my father was deported, and when I was younger, I didn't realize how, because I grew up in a community where it was all Hispanic, all Mexican, I'm 30 minutes away from the border. because I grew up in such a very similar community, there's not a lot of Black people in my community, there's not a lot of white people in my community as much as there is Mexicans in my community, that the first time that I actually felt different or just was very aware of me being a brown person was when I went to go visit some family in Wisconsin, and we were the only brown people in the restaurant. And so and because my family over there is also all Spanish speaking, they have broken English, it was very evident that the workers that were there who were serving my family looked down on my family for their broken English. And that was something that I noticed the first time I was 17, and that was something that was very like, wow, there's a difference there. And I'm gonna go more into that on another topic, tied into that experience. So I feel that my language and my literacy influence who I am, because I feel like it makes me more accessible as a person. I also forgot to mention that my grandma, when I was younger, she used to make me read these books, like it was Bible stories, but they were all in Spanish. So I was able to really read really well in Spanish and read really well in English, and I feel like I really benefited from having to have read in Spanish as well as English. I think it influenced who I am because it makes me an accessible person, and up until now I hadn't really connected with what I feel like there's been a disconnect from me and my culture. And up until now that I'm in university and now that I'm living my life on my own, I am able to really think about my past, think about my life, think about my upbringing and my culture and how it's different to many other people's cultures. And I think I'm really starting to appreciate myself and my family and just my way of living and everything like that. I feel like I'm really starting to appreciate it now. I wish I could have appreciated it more when I was younger, but the thing is I didn't understand. And now that I'm in basically a bigger community, a bigger scope of people, I really feel like I understand more, and I really realize how important it was that I had all that Spanish in my life when I was younger. So I'm moving on to number 4, how these languages and literacies have or have not afforded us privileges. So I believe that for me, myself, I have been very privileged to know Spanish as well as English because I am able to translate. I've always been considered a little translator, especially in church or in my school. When I was younger, I used to translate for students who didn't know English. I would just help out my friends or other students that I know. I feel like I'm very privileged because I'm really grateful that I can help people, in that way who don't know English. That's another big reason as to why I really want to practice my Spanish and get better at my Spanish, because I want to be able to assist people who don't know English and be able to speak for them, because I have seen firsthand people be very rude to people who don't speak English or speak broken English. It's very demeaning, and I want to be able to help people to avoid that experience, because it breaks my heart and it makes me very angry. And specifically, I want to talk about an experience I had last summer where I was working at a camp, and the demographic was primarily upper class white people. I was hired on as a counselor, and going into the job, I had this fear that there was going to be some kind of instance of some kind of racism or something was going to be off. And based on the pictures that were on the website and based on everything I'd seen, and I really didn't want to stereotype the camp. I wanted to go in with the best intentions. And it was just, so I got there, and I am one of the probably 20 brown people of color that were hired on as counselors. The rest being either white or anything else. Mostly, it was all white people. And all the children that were there, all the campers were also white, with probably a handful of children of color. However, all of the cleaning staff and all the cooking staff were all from Mexico or South America in general, who did not have a lot of experience with any English. And I think that I was very, very privileged to be bilingual in that situation, because I was able to communicate with, I'm going to paint a picture. So basically, there would be situations where our campers would be getting food, and because there was a language barrier, sometimes the kids could have been rude, or sometimes people were just like, I don't know what you're saying. Sometimes it really felt that there was a lack of understanding or a lack of empathy for the kitchen staff and the cleaning staff, because they didn't speak English or because they spoke broken English. And I made friends with the staff. I was able to make friends with them because I spoke Spanish, and they were all so happy that I spoke Spanish, and I really love the friends that I made. I love the people that I met, and I love that I got to know them in a different way. However, it was also very heartbreaking to hear how I was one of the only people that kind of treated them like a person. And they mentioned that to me. They're like, Alicia, eres la única que nos hablas, eres la única, you're the only one that really talks to us, you're the only one that really gets to know us. And there was these interviews that they had to do. There was like these paper interviews that everyone had to do, like counselors and the kitchen staff, or the counselors would interview the kitchen staff, but some of the counselors failed to do them because the kitchen staff spoke Spanish. And so I filled in, and I was able to do that, one of the kitchen staff members interview for her, because I was able to speak Spanish and I was able to translate. So I feel like I have been very privileged in that situation. And I ended up having to leave the camp because after I confronted the camp director saying that it felt like hiring me and my other friends of color as counselors, it felt very, I said that it felt like we were their guinea pigs for diversity at the camp, because they had said that this was the most diverse camp they had ever in all of their years, and there was only about 20 people of color from many, many counselors. And I was very straight. I felt that I was being used as a diversity plug, a token for like, oh, we hire brown people as well. And I was immediately told that I needed to leave the camp. This was in Massachusetts. So I had to figure out how to get to Massachusetts to Arizona in a night. I only had like 20 minutes to pack. So the person who I told this to could not empathize with me, or could not begin to understand or begin to reflect on why I felt the way I did about the way the camp was run. At some point, I remember I spoke Spanish in front of one of the little girls, and she said, oh, do you work in the kitchen? Only because I spoke Spanish. And there was a very odd feeling about that. There was a very, the atmosphere was not something that I agreed with, and that was not somewhere I wanted to continue to work. So there is that. So number 5, how our languages and literacies have been important to our autobiographical stories. I'm going to cut this short, or get this going, because I only have 15 minutes. I feel like me being a Spanish speaker, me being bilingual, has helped me in so many ways. And I really can't wait to learn the tools that I can use to help my future students who are not that English is not their first language. I feel like It has made me a bigger person. It has made me a smarter person, and I'm very grateful for the opportunity. So my name is Alicia Damien. Thank you so much. If you've listened to this, thank you.